The letter that destroyed my perfect life was sitting in my mailbox, addressed to my wife. What I discovered inside would change everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my family, and the woman I'd loved for 8 years. I'm getting ahead of myself though. Let me paint you the picture of what my life looked like before everything fell apart. My name is Marcus, and I thought I had it all figured out. 8 years married to my wife Sarah, 2 incredible kids. Emma, who was 6, and Jake, who was 5. Sarah was 7 months pregnant with what we thought would be our 3rd child, and I was absolutely over the moon about it. I work as a software engineer for a tech startup in Austin. The pay is solid, the work is challenging, and I genuinely love what I do. Sarah had been working as a project manager at a marketing firm until she suddenly quit earlier that year to focus on being a full-time mom. At the time, I thought it was sweet. She wanted to be completely present for our growing family. Everything seemed perfect. We had our routines down pat, bedtime at 10 for the kids, then Sarah and I would spend our evenings together planning for the future, talking about baby names, dreaming about our life with 3 little ones running around. Then came that Tuesday afternoon that changed everything. I was sorting through the mail like I always did after work, bills, advertisements, the usual stuff you throw away without thinking twice. But there was this one envelope that caught my attention. It was from a law firm I'd never heard of, addressed specifically to Sarah. My first instinct was to set it aside for her, but something about the official letterhead made me pause. I opened it. The words on that page hit me like a freight train. It was from an attorney representing the wife of Sarah's former co-worker, a man named David. His wife was filing for divorce, and according to this letter, she was naming my wife as the reason. Not only that, but she was considering something called an alienation of affection lawsuit against Sarah. I had to look that term up online. When I read the definition, my hands started shaking. My perfect world, my fairy tale marriage, it was all crumbling in real time. Sarah was out with the kids at Target. When they came home, I watched her unload groceries, help the kids with their snacks, completely normal, completely oblivious to the fact that I knew. I kept my composure through dinner, through bath time, through our usual evening routine. After we put Emma and Jake to bed, Sarah and I settled onto our couch like we always did. I reached for her hand and said, "Hey, can you come with me for a minute?" She followed me into our home office, probably thinking I wanted to show her something on the computer or discuss our weekend plans. I closed the door behind us, opened the desk drawer, and handed her the letter. I watched her face change as she read it. First confusion, then recognition, then complete devastation. She dropped the letter like it was on fire and threw herself into my arms, sobbing harder than I'd ever seen her cry. She was holding on to me like I was the only thing keeping her from drowning, saying, "I'm sorry," over and over again. I had to ask her to keep it down. Our kids were sleeping just down the hall, and the last thing I wanted was for them to hear this. For about 20 minutes, she just cried into my chest while I stood there in shock, trying to process what this meant for our family. When she finally calmed down enough to talk, the story came pouring out. She told me about a business trip to Chicago, how she and David got snowed in due to a blizzard. How they ended up at the hotel bar, talking about work, about their families. How she invited him to her room to give him some documents. And then, well, you can imagine what happened next. She swore it was a one-time thing, that they both immediately regretted it, that she quit her job because she couldn't live with herself. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold. She admitted they didn't use protection. Which meant the baby she was carrying might not be mine. I told her right then and there that we needed a paternity test. She fell to her knees, begging me not to make her do it, insisting the baby was definitely mine because we'd been trying for another child and she'd only been with David once. But I couldn't take that chance. I wouldn't raise another man's child without knowing the truth. The next few days were a nightmare. We told both sets of parents what had happened. Sarah could barely speak through her tears while I explained that our marriage might be over. I made it clear that if the baby wasn't mine, she'd be moving out immediately and we'd be getting divorced. We scheduled the prenatal paternity test for the following Friday. The cost was outrageous, insurance wouldn't cover it, but I didn't care. I had to know. That week felt like the longest of my life. Sarah was an emotional wreck, clinging to me every moment I was home. The kids kept asking why mommy was acting so strange, why she was hugging daddy all the time. I didn't know what to tell them. Friday came. We sat in front of my computer, both of us shaking as I logged into the testing site to get the results. The page loaded slowly. I had to scroll down to find the actual findings. The baby wasn't mine. Sarah collapsed onto our bed, screaming and crying. I grabbed my keys and just left. I couldn't be in that house for another second. I drove around for hours, calling our parents, calling my attorney, trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. When I came home that night, I told Sarah she had to move in with her parents temporarily. I couldn't have the kids witnessing the drama that was about to unfold. I was filing for divorce, challenging the paternity legally so my name wouldn't end up on the birth certificate by default. That's when she said something that still haunts me to this day. Through her tears, she whispered, "I'll terminate the pregnancy if it means keeping you." I took her hands and looked her in the eyes. I told her that baby was innocent, that she didn't ask to be part of this mess her parents created. I said the baby deserved a chance at life, regardless of everything else. Sarah immediately backtracked, saying she could never go through with ending the pregnancy, but then suggested adoption. I told her that was something she needed to discuss with the baby's biological father, that adoption might haunt her forever, and it wouldn't fix our marriage anyway. She insisted she'd never speak to David again, that she'd raise the baby alone. We held each other that night, both of us crying, knowing it was probably the last time we'd share a bed as husband and wife. The next morning, I helped her pack and drove her to her parents' house. I explained to Emma and Jake that mommy needed to stay with grandma and grandpa until the baby was born, that she needed extra rest. They seemed okay with it, kids are resilient like that. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Sarah didn't want anything, no alimony, no assets, nothing. She thought that by giving up everything, she could somehow prove her love and maybe win me back. I insisted we split things fairly, but I did ask for primary custody of the kids. She agreed, as long as I promised not to move more than 35 miles away. 5 months later, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby girl she named Lily. The divorce was finalized around the same time. David, the biological father, had moved to Denver after his own divorce and never once reached out about his daughter. He knew she existed, but apparently didn't care enough to be involved. The next few years were rough on everyone. Sarah struggled with postpartum depression, had trouble bonding with Lily initially. Her parents had to step in and help with the baby while Sarah went to therapy 3 times a week and took medication to get her mental health back on track. She sent me emails constantly, telling me how much she loved me, how sorry she was, begging for another chance. I never responded to those messages, only to ones about Emma and Jake. Her mother told me that in Sarah's mind, she was still married to me, that writing those emails was her way of maintaining our connection. About 3.5 years after the divorce, something happened that changed everything. I was picking up Emma and Jake for a trip to the aquarium. It was supposed to be a special daddy-daughter Sunday. As I was backing out of Sarah's driveway, Emma suddenly shouted, "Dad, there's Lily." I looked up and saw this adorable little girl with curly brown hair standing at the edge of the driveway. She was waving at us with one hand and wiping tears away with the other. Jake said, "She's crying, Dad, because she wants to come with us." I stopped the car and told the kids to wait while I went to talk to Lily. I knelt down to her level and asked her name. She said, "Lily," in this tiny, sweet voice. I introduced myself as Marcus and asked why she was crying. She looked at me with these big, innocent eyes and said she wanted to go to the aquarium with us. Something in my heart just broke open. I asked if I could pick her up, and she nodded. When I lifted her up, she smiled this enormous smile that absolutely melted me. For the first time, I didn't see her as the result of my wife's betrayal. I saw her as a little girl who needed love, who saw her siblings getting special time with their dad and wanted to be included. I knocked on Sarah's door and called her. When she answered and saw me holding Lily, she just lost it, started crying happy tears. I told her I wanted to take Lily with us to the aquarium. She could barely get the words out, asking if I was sure. We had an amazing day. What was supposed to be a 2-hour visit turned into 5 hours. Lily was scared of some of the bigger sea creatures, so I carried her around most of the time, and honestly, I didn't mind at all. She fell asleep in my arms during the last part of our visit and slept the whole way home. That day, I fell in love with Lily. Not as the reminder of my ex-wife's betrayal, but as a little girl who needed a father figure, and frankly, as the daughter I'd always wanted. The next day, I emailed Sarah asking if we could work out an arrangement for Lily to spend time with her siblings when they were with me. Sarah was thrilled but said we didn't need any legal paperwork. I could just take Lily whenever I wanted. But I wasn't taking any chances. I had my attorney draft an agreement that protected me from any paternity obligations while allowing me to be involved in Lily's life. Soon, Emma, Jake, and Lily were with me Friday through Monday, then with Sarah Tuesday through Thursday. Lily became incredibly attached to me. Jake started calling her my shadow because she followed me everywhere. She'd always sit next to me during meals or movie nights, choose to stay inside with me when the other kids went out to play. Then, about a year later, something happened that made me realize I needed to make this relationship official. Lily was in preschool by then and had painted me a picture. She was so excited to give it to me that she had her grandfather call me from his phone so she could tell me about it. I told her I couldn't wait to see it on Friday when I picked them up. About 30 minutes later, I heard a soft knock on my front door. I was working in my home office, so I got up to see who it was. There was Lily, standing at my door, holding up her painting. I let her in and asked who brought her over. She said, "I walked here by myself to give you this picture. I know the way now." My heart stopped. Her grandparents later told me she'd figured out the route to my house and had walked, or run, nearly a mile, crossing a busy 6-lane road, just to bring me that picture. I got emotional, pulled her into the biggest hug and called her grandfather to let him know she was safe. He was terrified. They'd been doing yard work and thought she was playing in her room. I took Lily to get the picture professionally framed. She was so excited when I told her I was going to hang it in my dining room. Over dinner at her favorite restaurant, I gently explained that she should never leave without telling the adults where she's going, but that she could always ask to visit me. That evening, when I brought her home, I asked Sarah if we could talk privately. We drove to our old favorite spot, a bench at the park where we used to take the kids when we were still married. I told her I wanted to explore adopting Lily. Sarah was overjoyed. She hugged me and cried, saying she'd hoped and prayed for years that I would become Lily's father. We sat on that bench for over an hour, talking about what it would mean, how it would work. The legal process took about a year. Since David had never been involved in Lily's life, no contact, no support, nothing, the court considered her abandoned. 1 year later, at the age of 7, Lily officially became my daughter. That adoption happened 9 years ago, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I now have 3 amazing kids, and I love them all equally, something I never thought would be possible. I'm remarried now to an incredible woman named Jessica. We have our first child together on the way, due in 3 months. Yes, that'll be number 4. I always dreamed of having a big family, and at 49, I figure I better not wait much longer. Sarah and I maintain a friendly relationship, even though Emma and Jake are both in college now and Lily is 15. For years, Sarah held on to hope that I'd come back to her, especially after I adopted Lily. She never dated anyone after our divorce. She tells people she had the best husband and no one else could measure up. While it's flattering to hear, I honestly wish she'd find someone to make her happy. She's a good person who made one terrible decision that upended multiple lives. I didn't date anyone for 6 years after our divorce. To be honest, I thought there might be a chance Sarah and I could reconcile at some point. But when things got serious with Jessica, I met with Sarah to let her know. It was emotional for both of us, but she gave me her blessing. Even now, I think about how one moment of weakness changed everything, not just for Sarah and me, but for our kids, for David's family, for everyone involved. It's a reminder that our choices have consequences that ripple far beyond what we can imagine. But here's the thing, sometimes the most broken situations can lead to the most beautiful outcomes. I gained a daughter I never expected to love, learned that family isn't just about blood, and discovered that forgiveness, even when you can't forget, can open doors you never saw coming. Life has a funny way of working out, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. What's your take on this story? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to make impossible choices about family, forgiveness, or starting over? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button for more real-life stories that'll keep you thinking long after the video ends.